It is probably one of the best looking microphones that I have had in my studio. It's heavy, actually. So it is unquestionably very sturdy. I do have an issue with the pop filter. Could end up with a little bit of a sibilance problem. It's got a bump at about 140 hertz. Does not feel like a budget microphone. So would I want the STC-2 in my microphone closet? Hey, today I am reviewing the Sontronics STC-2 microphone. It is a large diameter capsule microphone. It is actually one of their original models, but it's the latest generation. Way back when they started the company in 2005, this is one of the first microphones they released. It comes in silver. It's kind of a pewtery silver, and there's also a black version. But also Sontronics, they're British. As far as I know, they don't sell the microphone by itself. They sell it as a pack, and it comes in a rather large box. You get a pop filter, you get a shock mount, you get a little pouch to put the microphone in, and you get a couple other things. They even include a microphone cable, so it is basically ready to go out of the box. We'll talk about some of those accessories in just a little bit, but as always, when I'm reviewing microphones, it's not from a vocalist standpoint, it's not from an instrumentalist standpoint, recording studio standpoint. I want to know, is the microphone suitable for content creators like YouTubers, podcasters, things like that? All right, let's run the STC-2 through its paces here. As you can see, I'm not using the pop filter on this microphone just yet. I want you to be able to hear it without the pop filter. Pop filters often cut down on high frequency response, and I want you to be able to hear the microphone as is. I'm not directly on axis with the microphone because otherwise it would just get crushed with plosives, but I'm kind of talking past it, so you can still get a sense here. So you can, of course, talk directly into the microphone, but I'm being very careful not to do too many plosives. Did I just do one there? Plosives. Like most condenser microphones, this is very sensitive to plosives, especially close up. And as a content creator, you're likely to be close to your microphone for a variety of reasons. Maybe you want that proximity effect. Maybe your room isn't very well treated, and so you're trying to adjust the ratio of background noise to your voice. So with this microphone, though, you can get away with getting in close and not using a pop filter as long as you're using good mic technique, speaking off axis, trying not to overload it with breaths and noises and stuff like that. And we'll do a little plosive test later, but let's talk about some of the features that come with this microphone first. The STC-2 has two switches built into it. One is a 10 dB pad in case your signal is too loud. For vocal use, that's probably not something you'll use a whole lot, but it's nice to have it. You also get a low roll-off switch, and it rolls off at 75 hertz. Now, low roll-offs can be handy if you're an instrumentalist and maybe you have something that's a little too boomy down in the low end, you can roll it off. But it's also useful for creators, and it can help reduce the impact of plosives. Now, a low roll-off is not going to get rid of a plosive because a plosive is like a physical thing. It's air smacking into the diaphragm of the microphone, and EQing it after the fact doesn't change that. However, it does reduce the impact on your compressor or limiter, and it might keep the microphone from clipping your signal. So if you're having trouble with it, it can at least alleviate some of those problems. So, and also if your voice tends to be really resonant in the low frequencies, maybe you don't want all that low end, so you can adjust it. So anyway, we should listen to it. Okay, now you're listening to the STC-2 with the 75 hertz roll-off engaged. You might be able to hear a little bit of difference in the low end, depending on how you're monitoring this. If you've got headphones on, you might be able to hear it. If you're listening to it from your phone, probably can't tell the difference. Now we're back to a normal flat low end, and I'll do the 10 dB pad as well, but all it's going to do is reduce the volume. So here we go, 10 dB pad engaging now, and it is 10 dB quieter. Woohoo, it's quiet. Yes, that's what the switch does. It makes things quiet. Let's talk about some of the accessories the STC-2 has, and the first one I want to talk about is the shock mount. It is a beefy shock mount. It's heavy, actually. So it is unquestionably very sturdy. Now, the question is, does it prevent shocks? And actually, it does a pretty good job. Here, I'll tap on the microphone first. Now I'm going to tap on the outside of the shock mount. And I'll tap on the boom arm. It's not really picking up any shocks passing through any of that, so it's doing a really nice job. It is a traditional shock mount shape. It covers the entire microphone. There's no cutaway to allow you to position it very close to like a guitar amp or something like that. But in terms of positioning it close to your face, I don't have a problem with the shock mount. All right, let's take a look at the pop filter now. And the pop filter is pretty sizable, and it is a nylon style multi-layer pop filter. I don't know if it's 2 or 3 layers. It's got their logo on it. All right, I'm gonna put it onto the shock mount. I am speaking directly on axis with the microphone now, directly towards the microphone, but through the pop filter, so you can get a sense of how the pop filter changes the sound, if any. I do have an issue with the pop filter. It's big. I mean, that's good, but it's bad. It's good if you're a vocalist and you're just, you're further away from the microphone and you're just kind of wailing on it. But it's bad in the sense that if for on-camera use, well, you can't see my face. And yes, I could position this a little differently and things like that, but it is a very large pop filter. The other issue I have with the pop filter is the way it's connected to the shock mount. There's a mounting system on it that is kind of a clone of the mount for the mic stand, and instead the pop filter has this little attachment. But the end result is that it puts the pop filter quite a distance away from the microphone, which means that you can't get your mouth, your face, that close to the microphone with this pop filter. I am right up on the pop filter, and I'm probably 2 or 3 inches away from the microphone. And maybe that's not a big deal, but if you're looking for the ultimate in proximity effect, that's kind of far away from the microphone. I think for on-camera use, I wouldn't use this pop filter just because I can't get close enough to the microphone and it obscures my face. So either I would use a foam one, just put it over the top, or I would use one of those curved ones that kind of straps to the front of the microphone. Let's do a plosive test on this microphone, and I'm going to start with off-axis because this is how I would typically talk on camera, with it off to the side like this. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. All right, now prepare yourself. I'm going to do it on axis. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Got kind of crushed there, but that's to be expected. That's what condenser microphones do. Now let's get our shock mount here. It's almost kind of cheating because the pop filter makes you get so far away from the microphone, but I've tilted it forward, and this is about as close as I can get the pop filter to the microphone. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. When I get a new microphone in the studio, I like to compare it with some of the old standbys, something that is, similar size and similar price point, give or take. So let's do that now. Now you're listening to the Electronics SE2200, which I have reviewed previously. It is also a large diaphragm condenser microphone, and like the STC-2, this one goes back quite a ways. This is like the 3rd or 4th generation of this microphone. This is the latest version of it. Now you're listening to the Lauten Audio LA-220, part of their Black series, and I reviewed this microphone a little while ago as well. It is also a large diaphragm condenser microphone. It's a little smaller than the other 2 microphones, and it also has a tapered body rather than the cylinder style that the other 2 have. Okay, here are my thoughts on the STC-2. First off, it is a fine-looking microphone. It is probably one of the best-looking microphones that I have had in my studio. It's got kind of a retro look to it, and it feels really solid. It's high quality. The machining of the parts is just really well done, too. There's no loosey-goosey kind of sloppy workmanship on this. And as I've said before, the shock mount is just beefy. It is solid. It is going to take a pounding. I'm pretty convinced that it will last longer than I will. Now, obviously, I have some issues with the pop filter they supplied because I'm using a third-party pop filter for this part of the video. And one thing I noticed about the pop filter was that when I did a plosive test with it, it was resonating. Like it sounded like a drum. It was like this thum, thum, thum noise. Peter Piper, Peter Piper. Now, I was probably a little closer to that pop filter than Sontronics would like me to be, and probably closer than most vocalists would be. But as a content creator, you're likely to be right up on your microphone for the reasons I mentioned before. So that resonating of the pop filter just kind of did it for me. I don't think I would use that pop filter. So when I played back the audio from the STC-2 and compared it to the 2 other microphones, comparing the frequency response, I feel like the STC-2 and the Electronics SE2200, they were very similar in their low end and their mid-range frequency response. Now, if you look at the STC-2's frequency response chart, it's got a bump at about 140 hertz, which I'm not hearing in actual usage. Now, when you compare the frequency responses in the high end of these two microphones, the SE2200 has more of a flat, neutral high end, whereas the STC-2 has a bump at around 8 kilohertz. So that is either going to give you a nice crispness to your voice, or it could end up with a little bit of a sibilance problem, depending on your voice, depending on how you use the microphone. It's not a bad thing, it's just different. Also, if you're using a pop filter, that's probably going to cut back on some of that high frequency bump anyway, so that's just something to factor in. Now, the Sontronics microphone is about the same price as the SE Electronics microphone. You get more in the kit with the STC-2, and you get a couple more options with switches from the SE2200. Now, if we compare this microphone with the Lauten Audio LA-220, the LA-220 has a very neutral high-end, kind of flat high-end as well, like the SE2200. Getting all these numbers mixed up here. However, the low end of the LA-220 has a considerable boost to it, whereas the STC-2 is much more neutral, much more flat. If you have a really low resonant voice and you were using the LA-220, that might work for you or it might work against you. And just comparing apples to oranges or whatever we're doing, the LA-220 is a little bit more expensive, maybe about $50 or so more than the STC-2 or the SE2200. Now, I should tell you right now that Sontronics is not giving me any freebies. They're not giving me any microphones. They offered to give me a discount if I wanted to keep the mic, but otherwise I have to return it. So it is on loan. The STC-2 goes for about $300, and we're talking the microphone, we're talking about the pop filter, the shock mount. You even get like a 5-meter long mic cable and a pouch and stuff like that. So it's quite an extensive kit you get for the price. So Sontronics doesn't have as big a presence in the United States as they do elsewhere. So the microphone is kind of rare, but you can definitely get it. And think about that. That actually makes it kind of exclusive, doesn't it, right? So it's a microphone that nobody has seen before. That's kind of cool. So definitely check the video notes. I'll include some links there so you can find the microphone in the US. So would I want the STC-2 in my microphone closet? Yes, absolutely. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous microphone. It's got a great sound. If you like a microphone that's got a little bit of a boost in the high end, then this is definitely a go-to microphone. It's very solidly built. It's very robust. It is definitely a winner in the so-called budget microphone category. It does not feel like a budget microphone. By the way, if you are still shopping for a large diaphragm condenser microphone, I do have reviews for those other two microphones as well, and you can see them right here.